Field of 68 After Dark.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Field of 68, presented by BetMGM. I'm Dalen Cuff, Mike LaTulip, Terrence Oglesby, one of the greatest players ever don a college jersey. Tyler Hansbrough with us. That intro was interesting, guys. I did notice it for the first time that I was in it. Doesn't say much about my playing career that I'm in a suit and tie, and the rest of you guys are getting buckets. I just found that very, very interesting and telling about my career. Let's real quick, we're going to get to the Duke game right now. Duke and Texas are battling in Charlotte right now. We will get a full recap of that. Probably about 5 or 10 minutes when it goes final. Want to start kind of big picture. Obviously, Monday night we had the opener. And T.O., I'll give it to you first. You got this interesting smirk on your face right then. We had two quality games Monday night. We had a bunch of beatdowns. We will get to the freshmen in a minuto because there was some big-time freshman performances. I do want to touch on those. Any just larger takeaways from the start against Monday Night Football for the college basketball season?
My largest takeaway is Louisville probably should never play South Carolina State again, because I was stuck in a little bit of an issue. And at one point I looked up, there were 17 minutes to go in the second half, and the score was, I think it's called a palindrome. And I can't spell it. You're the smart guy of this group, Dallin, so I'm going to let you spell it. But it was like 17-71. And I look it over at Jay Alter. I was like, man, this is about to turn into a podcast of our own. But I'll say this. It does make it difficult to call some of those games, and you guys all know that. But at the same time, Louisville's really good. Everybody but Boston College in the League One, in the ACC anyway. And then I've really been impressed so far with Texas and how physical they are. Now, they can't buy a bucket, but it's just been right now in college hoops, it's almost the exact opposite of NBA hoops. In NBA, the offense is ahead of the defense at the beginning of the season. In college, the defense is way ahead of the offense, so everybody's still trying to figure themselves out, and I think there's no more evidence than what we're watching right now with the Dickie B Classic.
Tyler, what do you think? What was your thought? And just kind of big picture.
Well, for me, I specifically tuned into Carolina and to kind of see with their 10 new guys how they kind of click and what their chemistry would be like. My big takeaway from the Carolina game was Caleb Wilson. And I think he's going to be a big-time player, and I really believe that his development and how he improves is really going to dictate how well of a year that Carolina is going to have. But we have a lot of size, and, ACC is back again this year. They got a lot of good teams. So it's good to see Carolina in that mix.
Mike, what you got, man?
My biggest takeaway was Field 68. Just, getting us started at 8 a.m. and helping us all kind of wet the beak for the college basketball season. So that was awesome. Just kudos to everybody involved in that. And I wish, there were some great games, mid-major games, and I wish we had more good games. And it just, those games last night, the Florida Arizona game, boom, that tipped. It just, and Duke Texas right now, it's why I like exhibition season. Dallin, you and I talked about this on the last show we were on. I like exhibition season, but I want some of those games that were in the exhibition season to be regular season games. I'm not saying it's a cop out, but I do feel like it's just a way for some of these programs to say, we played a tough game. Now we're going to play three bye games and beat the ever-living crap out of the teams we play, as T.O. saw last night.
LaTulip, you are a company guy. I bet you would never forget somebody sponsoring the show. Hold on, T.O. I bet he wouldn't forget somebody sponsoring the show like 48 hours before and then crushing the sponsor on the air. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't do that.
Or just a giant company that the company as a whole's working with, which is something that I've been prone to do on accident. Hey, in all seriousness, though, man, people forget, like, Field of 68 is a bunch of guys that got on Zoom during COVID and then figured it out. And, like, you look at something 5 years later, and guys, we're bystanders to everything that Rob, Jeff, Dagan, and Trevor do. Like, we get to talk for an hour. That's pretty much the extent of what we are. But, like, the fact that it's like 5 or 6 people, it's literally 5 or 6 people that were able to put together games that started at 8 a.m. and went all the way to the 7 p.m. slot is crazy to even think about. And like it just keeps growing at a rate that like we can't even fathom half the time. So kudos to them. Great point, LaTulip. I just get caught up in my own words sometimes, and we're on the field of 68 right now. So obviously we should have started out with that. Unprofessional by me, but kudos to them, man. Not only getting the teams to agree to come to this thing, but putting an environment together at Rock Hill. At that 8 a.m. game with Winthrop and Queens was packed. And then like you look back and forth between them and Sioux Falls, and then finding ways to fit all these things together in one fell swoop. Really impressive. Good on them. And to be honest with you guys, proud to be able to be a part or in a small part of what the Field of 68's become.
And not only just any teams, like really, really strong mid-major teams. You watched those games yesterday. There were some NCAA tournament teams on the floor, truly. Those are some league winners that took the floor yesterday. So, again, I know I said it. I know T.O. echoed it. Just kudos to everybody involved there because that shit is not easy. I think we all know that.
Well said. The people doing the real work. Trevor, Dagan, anybody behind the camera is really doing the real work. We're just showing up and running our mouth for a little bit. It's pretty easy to do. Duke up 17 now late on against Texas. We will get to that one once it goes final. We'll break down the whole game in the next block of the show, as they say in TV terms. But let's get to some of the great performances because there were a couple big-time games from big-time freshmen yesterday. We'll start with Cole Pete. Obviously, from Arizona, goes for 37 rebounds, 5 assists in a win over the defending champs, Florida. Tyler, let me start with you because I think we're some of these freshmen right now, and I think all of us remember our first game. But there are certain brands, there are certain level of attention, there's a certain level of expectation that are just different. Arizona is in that similar class to Carolina, and this young man showed up in a way in a really competitive game that was super impressive. What did you take away from Pete's performance?
Well, the most impressive thing is that he did it against a quality opponent in Florida. It's not like he put up these numbers or did these stats against, Central Arkansas. But I think the most impressive thing is how impactful on the game he is in multiple levels, like defensively, assists, rebounds. He can impact the game in many different ways. He's not just a one-dimensional player. But also, I will say this, a lot of freshmen usually kind of find their rhythm kind of mid-season. Usually this first part of the season is where, some freshmen kind of struggle because they're playing against more athletic, bigger guys. And then you start to get your rhythm, get used to that, and start to find your game a little bit. But some of these freshmen are coming out right from the gate and having big-time performances. And I would say the most impressive thing is that he did against Florida, a quality opponent.
Yeah, I mean, like Mike, when you watch this game, and as it was kind of ebbing and flowing back, I mean, Arizona started pretty poorly, and then they kind of inserted themselves in the game. Defensively, they're better. Florida couldn't guard them in the middle pick and roll, and I thought the Wildcats just abused them in different actions, just in that middle part of the floor. Were you at all surprised to see him kind of take this game over down the stretch? He, along with Bradley, made some really big plays the last 12 minutes to give him a win.
I wasn't necessarily surprised. I think we know how decorated Koa Pete was coming into this year. I think he just kind of gets lost in the shuffle when you think about those top 3 guys that are the 2026 draft prospects up top. And then you have the Caleb Wilsons and the Koa Petes and some of those guys, if you want to call it, in that second tier. But I loved what Tommy Lloyd did early in that game. I think it was, a little bit later or middle of the first half where he just, he ran a really nice action up top, high ball screen, got Pete diving to the rim, and then Karchenkov came off an exit screen on the baseline from Krivas, and they just threw the lob up top to Pete. I thought that settled him in. And then I just thought they kept things simple. I mean, just you don't need to overcomplicate things. You just short rolls in the middle third of the floor, and it didn't matter what levers Florida tried to pull. You try to get physical with him, he spins off you. You try to get physical with him, he fades away. You back off him, he eats up the space. And all that stuff I thought built, and Florida got so hyper vigilant on Pete that at the end of the game, it was time for Bradley to close. And there was one part at the end of that game that I thought was really indicative of just the gravity that Pete had. And it's, I think, 79-76 must-stop situation for Florida. And Tommy Houck had 30 blocks last year. 12, probably half of those coming from the weak side helping over. And he's got Pete on the low block Bradley snakes the ball screen. Krivas hits a great Gortat screen for Bradley to get to the rim, and Hawk just stays put. Doesn't come over for the weak side block. Bradley gets a point-blank layup. So just like that type of – we see Bradley get the layup, but that's still Pete's impact from all the work that he did leading up to that point. So just pretty unbelievable. So to do it not only just against a high-major opponent, but to do it against a front court I think we all think is the best front court in America. They retained that front court, and it's a front court that helped them win a national championship. So just it's a pretty impressive debut.
The fact that Arizona only took two of 5 from 3.
5.
Is that even allowed? I didn't even think
that's
was
like when you
anymore.
go look at the 2004 Pistons Spurs box score in the finals. That's like those are the 3-point attempts in those.
That's kind of where I'm at. Like I'm sitting here watching it, looking at it. I'm like, my God, only 5. Here's the thing with, and you guys might not remember this name, but Tyler, you might. Kyle Hines. You guys know this name?
Come on.
Like Kyle Hines, one of the greatest EuroLeague players of all time. Legitimately, like played at UNC Greensboro, but he was built like Koa Pete. The problem was he was like 6'3.5", 6'4". They are the exact same human, except Koa Pete is 5 inches taller. And what I really appreciate about Koa Pete's game is that he keeps it simple. He doesn't try to overexert you because he has more skill than he lets on a lot of times, but he stays within himself. And then what ends up happening, the NBA people, when you look at guys like that, like he's going to be he's going to be a pretty polarizing guy because he's not super tall. Is he going to be able to guard on the perimeter consistently? I think yes to all these answers, but still, like I think that's the reason he's kind of getting lost in the shuffle. The crazy part about it is he's so physically gifted as far as how strong he is. They're going to win so many games, and he's going to be able to control college games right away this season. And it's not just going to be against Florida. It's going to be through the entire Big 12 schedule. And, LaTulip talks about, well, it's the short roll and his decision-making, NBA calls it a seam pass, whatever. Like him being able to manage those things. And when people start to collapse, they're going to have to hit shots. That's going to change a little bit. But to go for 30 points, 7 and 5 is huge in your first game. But I think it goes back to the fact that he does keep it so simple. I think a lot of freshmen, by and large, like they get a little bit too mixed up in their own stuff. And he's keeping it within a couple of dribbles. He's making the easy pass. And then some of the things, like he's just stronger than you. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, he put that on display a couple different times, which is always a bit surprising. Again, against that front line in particular, who also he had some foul trouble issues. Krivas was great. They have their ability to alter shots at the rim for Arizona that really Florida couldn't do the other way. You mentioned the 3-point attempts. When you're living in the lane and you're getting good looks in the lane, that is an old school approach, but it was working for them, to say the least, as they battled back from down double digits to pulling away, and then it was tight down the stretch. This Duke game's going to go final. We're going to hit a break here. We'll go to break now, actually. We'll come back. We'll touch on some of the freshmen later. We'll get to DeBanza, but we also will get to Cameron Boozer, who didn't have his best night, but it doesn't matter. Duke now won by 15 over Texas, so we're going to hit a break here in a field of 68. Back to talk Texas and Duke after this.
We all know the Players Era Festival has become the best field in all of college basketball. And you have the opportunity to win a VIP trip to the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas, thanks to our partners over at BetMGM. Here's how it works. Opt into the contest and start placing bets on any sport of at least $10 with plus 100 odds or greater. When you do that, you earn leaderboard points based on the bet's odds and the amount that you wager. The more you bet, the higher the odds, the more points that you earn. The top players in that contest are going to win a prize package that includes tickets to the games, withdrawable funds for travel, a 4-night stay at the luxurious Mandalay Bay here in Las Vegas, and more. For the full list of prizes, look in the description below. Make the tournament legendary with BetMGM. Vegas is calling. You gonna answer? If you're not a member of the Field of 68's On3 community, make sure to go check us out. Get access to all of Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster's written content, including coaching carousel breakdowns, info on who is and isn't entering the transfer portal, insider recruiting information from none other than Joe Tipton, X's and O's analysis of all the teams in college basketball, and access to our message board community. A 7-day trial costs you $1. The field is 68 on 3. Get the scoop. Would you be surprised to find out that the Field of 68 is home to more than 35 podcasts? More than 25 team-specific podcasts that are hosted by the people that know what fans want the most. The Goodman and Hummel podcast, the DTF podcast, the A10 Insider podcast, and the Mountain West podcast. But wait, there's even more. The Field of 68 will be launching the ACC Insider podcast this year. Subscribe to this channel and come along for the ride.
Back here in the Field of 68, presented by BetMGM, alongside Tyler, T.O., Mike. I'm Dalen. All right, so Duke just won final, 75-60 win over Texas. They moved to 1-0. The full disclosure, we were all locked into the game, and then we got on air, and that's what they actually pulled away. So we'll have to go back and fully understand how Duke created a cushion. It's about a two-possession game when we went on air here about 11 o'clock Eastern time. T.O., I'll let you go first. What were your first impressions of, at one point Duke is playing, 3 freshmen, 2 sophomores in the lineup. Texas a little bit older, more physical, and Duke struggled to that first half, but ended up getting a 15-point win. What's your assessment of the Blue Devils night one?
Well, a couple of things. One is Isaiah Evans. I actually picked him to be first team All ACC, and he's one of these guys that Shire hasn't had. He didn't have it last year. I thought he had maybe had it a couple years ago, but right off the top of my head, you're going to have to live with some bad ones because some of the shots that he's capable of making are just out of this world good. He ended up very efficient tonight, 7 of 13, 4 of 8, and 5 of 6 from the free throw line. But the thing is 3 of those threes he hit in the first half were not easy looks. And they could be questionable as far as shot selection is concerned. But I'm saying this as a compliment. He has the ability to knock those down. I'm not going to say consistently because they're very, very difficult. Even the NBA players, the best ones, I have a hard time hitting fadeaways from the corner, running away. But he has that ability to change the course of a game or keep his team in the game. So that's number one. Isaiah Evans is really, really good, and you're going to have to live with some crazy ones, and you're just going to have to try to taper it down at certain points during the ball game. Point number 2, I'm applauding Cam Boozer because he started off pretty rough, and he ended up what he ended up going for the game. He ended up with 15 points, 3 of 12, 9 of 12 from the free throw line. In the first half, he was 0 of 7, 0 of 1 from the 3, 0 of 3 from the 3, 0 of 1 from the foul line. Second half, he kind of stayed with it. He stayed consistent. You could see a little bit of it whenever they went and I kind of say scrimmage Tennessee. They went down to Knoxville and they played Tennessee. He is relentless in how he attacks you. And in the second half, Texas got a little tired. And then what happened is that physicality that was rearing its head in the first half turned into slow feet a little bit in the second half, and they got caught. And Cam Boozer, because he is just relentless and doing the same thing and staying solid, he ends up getting to the free throw line a lot and ending up turning the game around for Duke to help them kind of get off on their way. Duke's very good. I feel like we're going to end up comparing this year's team to last year's team. We shouldn't do that. I felt like last year's team was one of the all-time great teams in college basketball, even though they didn't win. This year's team is a top 10 team in college basketball. And you look at it, they won by 15 points over Texas, and you didn't feel like they played all that well. That's where the room to grow is too. So that's positive.
Tyler, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, my first thought, if Texas could score, I think they might have won this game. I think Texas played really well defensively. I thought they were physical. I even felt like they played pretty disciplined, but they struggled scoring the ball. And then I think in the second half, I saw them take some, not great looks, a couple feet behind the three-point line. But I will say this, Texas had everything they wanted. Cam Boozer had an awful first half. Then he turned it around the second. You knew it was just a matter of time. And the one player from Duke that I think is going to make a big impact that impressed me was, hopefully I get his name right, the big guy, Ngongba. I think he has length.
There you go.
Yeah. Got it right.
Look at you. Look at you, AT. You've been in media, man. You've been in media.
Man,
this is a big deal right here. That's big time.
It's growth.
We got to call you professor. Yeah, go professor. Do your thing.
Yeah. I feel like he's going to get better and better. When I do look at Cam Boozer, the one thing that I will say is that's going to make a big difference for him. When I was watching him post up, his post ups weren't in scoring position. And I played against his dad, Carlos. Carlos was the best at just ducking in and getting right under the basket, getting the ball going right up. Doesn't allow the defense there to really double or triple team you or collapse on you. It makes it a lot easier. I think once he figures that out and learns how to get better position in the post area, I think his game's going to really kind of open up for him. But you can't post up kind of in between the lane and the three-point line against bigger physical guys because it allows the defense to kind of get to you. It makes it a lot more difficult to kind of maneuver and make a post move. But yeah, Duke looked a little rusty to me. I think they're, the kind of the first game jitters. I think they're a much better team than what they showed tonight.
Go, Mike.
Yeah, I think, T.O., you hit on it. There's naturally going to be the comparisons to last year's team, and I'm in agreement with you. That's, in my lifetime, that's one of the most complete teams I've seen, that Duke team last year. And I think what this team showed tonight that was similar to that team was that team last year just had, sans the last 3 minutes of the Final Four, they had incredible resolve. And they were so methodical with the way they went about winning games. And it was just possession by possession. I don't think this Duke team has that same knockout punch that Duke team had, but they can still win games methodically, like run their continuities, get Boozer on a cleared side, maybe force a double to make him a decision maker. I thought Shire, despite Boozer struggling in that first half, first play of the second half is what he ran multiple times in that second half, just like a wedge action at the elbow with a guard setting an up screen to get Boozer. Deeper catch, as Tyler alluded to, get that deeper catch. Because in the first half, he was trying to do a lot of stuff off the bounce. And Texas was so gapped up, not allowing him, shrinking the floor, making sure that he always felt a second body. They rarely sent a second body, but he felt a second body. But I think even though he struggled, and even though he struggled from the field tonight, he ends up with 15 and 13, but he's just so additive in other areas. I mean, even in the first half, it's his ability to switch 1 through 4. I know they don't switch much with Gomber. Malik Brown does. But his ability to switch, he had 3 steals in the first half. He still rebounds at a high level. That second jump that he has off the floor is quicker than a lot of players. He's long, he tracks, he's got great hands. So I think all these freshmen are going to struggle from the field at some point. It's just natural. It's going to happen. Can you remain additive? And I think that's what makes Cam Boozer, in my opinion. And when he finds himself like he did in the second half, that's how Duke blows open the game. And then last point has to be Isaiah Evans. I just we'll probably talk about Florida a little later. Florida needs an Isaiah Evans, someone that can just kind of wreck a game. Because that's exactly what happened. This game was in the mud in the first few minutes, and he pulled it right out of the mud with his flurry of threes. And I think a light bulb is going to go off for him later in the season, or hopefully soon, that he can start driving long closeouts and get downhill. I think he's slippery. I think he's athletic. That's just going to be another facet of his game he expands, and when he does, that just makes this Duke team more dangerous.
Yeah, on that point, I think that you saw it. Like when he came off a couple of those fade screens early in the middle of the second half that got them going a little bit. Their teams are gonna, they got caught on him a couple of times. Once you get over the top, he's gonna have to be able to take a shot fake and get in the lane and create. And that's just gonna, to Tio's point earlier, he's gonna put that he's wired to shoot it first. But if that thing's not going down, their closeout's gonna be coming hard. How does he put on the deck and create? But he had a huge impact in this game and getting them going because they were struggling early. I don't think John and the players did much service to Boozer early himself either. I think they were super stagnant. And to your point, Mike, I think they did it. There were 10 eyes on him every time he had the ball in that first half, and he still was forcing bad positions, bad opportunities. But I'd recognize the same thing coming out of that second half. To get him in an up screen, get him in motion going to the block to try to get a post up to establish him early on was huge. And you're obviously going to play through him. He's their best player. He's their future NBA top 5, top 3 draft pick. They're going to play through, but he obviously struggled early on in the course of the game. Didn't go away from him, and he ended up taking over the game late. I'm excited to see Sar continue to develop too. Like his ability to just some end-to-end speed at times. There was a turnover or something like a rebound, and he got shot out of a freaking cannon in the first half. And I was like, man, I'm excited to see him harness some of that ability in transition. Also, he can knock down a 3. Him playing out a closeout, him being able to play under control off the bounce. can be one hell of a player and big time player in that league and in the country in terms of a freshman. I'm excited to see him play, given his pedigree, playing in Barcelona. Let's talk Texas though. Sean Miller's first outing with this group, as Tyler alluded to, a little bit offensively, maybe limited early on. It seems they have some guys like Tremont Marth that have been around for quite some time. Michael, let you try to fire away first. What did you think of the Longhorns in their first appearance?
Super athletic. They're freaky. They are. And that's going to suit Sean Miller well in the SEC. But Tyler mentioned it. They're going to need to find, and Jordan Pope had his own little flurry in that second half. They're going to have to find more consistent options offensively. And part of that is, who's your real orchestrator out there would be my main question. But I think you just look at Sean Miller and that Xavier team last year. That team played their ass off last year. And I thought this Texas team has that as well. And the difference is this Texas team is crashing the glass. 18 offensive rebounds tonight. That's a positive that you can take if you're Sean Miller. That Xavier team last year, he just sent 4 or 5 back on D. They just wanted to set that half court defense. They were, I think, 325th nationally in offensive rebounding percentage. So that flips this year for this Texas team, and it's smart because he needs that to compete in the SEC, like I said. So that's a tough first opponent. I commend Texas for playing this game. There's not a lot of teams that are playing high-level games to start the year, so great litmus test, and they'll be ahead of the curve compared to some of these other teams that are playing cupcakes out of the gates.
Tyler, what'd you think?
Well, Texas kind of reminded me of one of the Tennessee teams where they played physical, good defense. They just couldn't score. And, the one thing I will say, I think Sean Miller really impressed me because I felt like this team was coached very well. You could tell that they had kind of a game plan. They played discipline. I think where the game kind of broke away was they got frustrated. When Duke got a little bit of a lead, they panicked and got away from taking quality shots, and you start seeing them shooting more threes, more contested shots. I think what they have to do, the key to their success is going to be how can we get easy buckets? Does that mean we have to run a little bit more, push the ball? Because I think they're going to have to rely on their defense. They have a little bit of an identity from what I saw tonight. Physical, they're going to beat you up on the boards. And if they can score, I think that's really going to be deciding factor of what type of team they're going to be the rest of the year.
I like that, Tyler. I like that. I like the Tennessee comparison because that kind of ran through my mind too. I was like, man, I was watching them play defense and how they were on the ball and how they were scrappy and in the gaps, and then they made passes tough around the perimeter. Excuse me. That's a good call. I like that a lot. Sean Miller, you bring in all these guys that you think are going to be offensively oriented and all that. The defense is ahead of the offense. He's going to be able to set those guys up for a little bit more success, but they had guys that played okay. I mean, Swain showed moments, 10 points in the first half on 10 shots though. Like they're going to have to find ways to be more efficient. But even in the first half, they were 33% from the field and 25 from 3. Like you got to find ways to be better. And a lot of that has to do with Duke. Like I'm not taking away that fact. Duke is every bit as physical as Texas is, but it just seemed like they made everything hard on the defensive end of the floor. Where does that offensive piece come from? I really liked what help me out, guys. Vokatitis. I thought he did some nice things in the post. Like played hard. He's massive. He needs to be able to go both directions because he was pretty easy to read as far as what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But by and large, like. You appreciate the physicality. Great point for playing by Mike. Going to the state of North Carolina to play Duke, first game of the season, no small task, right? So, they're going to have to find some offense. Game 1, basically on the road. I know it counts as an off-campus game, or I forget the correct nomenclature right now, but it counts as neither a home or away game. Help me out, LaTulip.
Neutral.
Huh? A neutral. Sorry. I can't even spell neutral.
I thought you were looking for something more technical. I'm like, what are you talking about? Neutral is the answer.
I was talking about neutral. It was in my head. I just couldn't get it out of my mouth.
Continue. Okay, got it. Palindrome.
But good for them. Good for them for going and taking that challenge. Where's the offense come from with consistency? And there's a Texas team that even last year with some of the returning guys didn't shoot it all that well. So that part's got to be that part's got to be fixed. But, Sean Miller always finds a way when it comes to some of those things.
Yeah. I think, and I'll add to just touching on the offense and the point guard play and all that, like 6 assists, 16 turnovers in a game like this. That's just not, you're just not going to beat Duke like that. You're just not. And I thought their quality of shot dropped significantly in the second half. And when you have shot quality issues and ball security issues, that's a very bad combo. That's not a combo that you want. And so Duke was able to grind them down. I'm curious, Swain's interesting. I mean, he had a big time game in the NCAA tournament last year against Illinois, and can he become a very dependable offensive option? And then what do you get from Mark? He's been in the game for a long time. Just more consistency out of those guys is gonna bode well for them. But yeah, I'm not worried about Texas at all. I thought they took the fight to Duke in that first half. Also, this was a football game. In like the first 15 minutes of this game, there was like bodies flying everywhere. Guys were getting tossed to the ground, no whistles. And then the second half, that just completely flipped. I mean, it felt like every off-ball grab was a foul. And so I thought that played into Duke's favor as well. So just interesting. I don't know if you guys maybe saw that as well, but it's kind of an oddly officiated game.
Well, it was also 3-2 5 minutes into the game, so it was an absolute grinder early on. But yeah, I do think it's weird because
it was sumo wrestling in there.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing that is real. It's the first game for both teams. It is the first big game in a big stage. Now that Roger Ayers, like that crew is a high level crew. It's a Final Four crew, but it wasn't their best day. To your point, LaTulip, I think you kind of let them play early, and then he tried to kind of corral it. If anything else, if we're gonna let it be ugly for 20. I'd rather let it be ugly for 40, like this, so we know what we're dealing with. When you change that thing up, it's hard to play a different way than we just played for 20 minutes, especially in a game like that in our first game of the season.
What does our resident referee have to say?
Tio's ready. You're coughing. You want to say something? Go.
Speaking of which, the challenge rule, and I don't know your all's take on this, but I love that it's there because it did noticeably speed stuff up at the end. However, I can't wait to hear how many players are going to start waving their finger, and the coaches. And John Shire looked at Malik Brown today. He goes, "I trust you. He was wrong." Hey guys, look, coaches. I'm talking to coaches for the 12 coaches that are watching. You can't trust anybody with this stuff. I've been doing this NBA stuff for the past 2 years. They're never right, and they argue every call. You better have a really good video coordinator behind you because the players are lying. Every single one.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's the support staff guy behind the bench that gets turned to in the heat of the game and has to make a judgment call in like 3.5 seconds, looking down at an iPad. That's tough. Yeah. That's pressure. And I wonder how many of those guys, if they're on the fence, they just pretty much got to say no.
Dude, I think it was Lindsay last night in the BYU game that did it like 3 times, like 6-minute mark on to the end of the game, and he kept twirling. The Nova player kept twirling his finger. In my head, honestly, maybe because I'm a degenerate, I'm like, is this going to be a market? Are we going to be betting on how many misconstrued challenges? Because guys are just twirling their fingers. Your coaches aren't going to do that. Not with 8 minutes to go. Not with 6.
You better be absolutely right.
Stop doing it. And that's the thing. I would say this, Tio. The players aren't lying, and we know. You just never think you're wrong. You just think you're right. That's a problem.
Well, it's like Grant Williams for the Hornets. Like he would try to challenge everything, and eventually everybody just turned their back on him. It's like, guys, this isn't going to happen. Coaches, don't listen to these dudes now. They'll get you in trouble. They'll lose your challenge in the last 2 minutes when you really need it.
But I think that storyline, though, how it's applied, how it's adjudicated, how quick, to your guys' point, is the video. You got to have a good video guy back there quickly assessing what's going on, because there's not a lot of time between some of these things to make the decision to go or no go before they're going to move on to the next play. So I'm interested to see how that's going to be, how coaches approach it, how it's rolled out there, and to your point, how many of them say, "Sorry, man, nah, we're not doing that. I'm gonna keep that challenge."
Big word alert! Hey, adjudicated. Can't spell it. Dalen used it, and it sounded like it was
sometimes
right.
Guys, you got to stay on brand. Again, when your intro is in a certain time, you got to stay on brand. What are we doing here? What are you doing here?
That's right. I got it.
Let's talk
Yep.
BYU Nova though quickly, because that ended up being a really good game. At one point, it seemed like BYU was going to kind of pull away. I mean, Kevin Willard's crew really they fought, they were physical. Some of their guard play was solid, made some shots to keep that thing close. And we were on the freshman kick. You can take it to DeBonsa. Tyler, you can take it somewhere else. But Tyler, we'll start with you. Kind of your thoughts of that game and maybe even leaning more towards BYU given the fact they won a game.
Well, I really like BYU. The one kid I really like for BYU is a Saunders kid. I think he has one of the quickest triggers in college basketball. But I will say this. BYU, DeBansa, probably said that wrong, but I really feel like he's just going to get better and better as the year goes on. And I think that is he worth $7 million? I don't know about that, but I will say this: he can do a lot of different things, and he can impact the game defensively and offensively. And if I'm talking about Nova, I still think it's going to be a bit of a transition phase for them. I think they have 11 new guys, so it's still pretty early to see how their chemistry is going to work out. But that's my final thoughts on there. But yeah, I mean, BYU looked good. I saw them play against UNC as well in the preseason. They beat us up pretty good, handled that game. But yeah, they're a good team.
Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I thought again, credit Kevin Willard and Villanova for hanging around in this game. I just think BYU, I thought they dialed in the second half defensively, and I just think they have so many options offensively. I mean, you touched on Saunders, but Keita rolling to the rim, and then you have Rob Wright just being able to break you down, and then DeBansa, like. I think when BYU was in the mix and when he chose BYU, everybody immediately shifted over to the price tag. Well, he went to BYU because of the $7 million. But people forget BYU has had an infrastructure that supported a player of the year before in Jimmer Fredette. I mean, this has been like a really high-level basketball program, and I think it's the perfect spot for him. It's an NBA-esque system that's free-flowing, and time again, if it wasn't for transition or secondary transition, it was pick and roll with keeping his man on his hip, attacking the big downhill. And then you just think about how well insulated DeBansa is to allow him to progress at the appropriate rate without putting too much on his plate. I mentioned all those guys around him, but Keita is a lob threat, Saunders on like the back action, shake action on the backside, that just a bright offensive mind that Kevin Young is to help him get him in the right spots. I mean, we've just seen that certain guys go to certain places as high level draft prospects and they get, you're like square peg round hole, offensively, especially. And that just wasn't the case for DeBansa. I think he's going to continue to, to excel with, but having multiple ball handlers around him is just huge. BYU, it's always going to be the defensive end for them. I'm not worried about them offensively. So once they hit Big 12 play, especially against the top of that league, it's going to be interesting.
I'm okay. First, I got a few notes. First, Tyler Hansbrough, terrific pronunciation of DeBansa. Good on you. Secondly, LaTulip, I'm all for a Jimmer Fredette, mention. But Danny Ainge is the greatest player to ever play at BYU. 1981 Wooden Award winner, and you failed to mention my man. So that's
Fair.
First things first. DeBansa could be the best player since Danny Ainge there, though. I mean, here's the thing. He's got a lot of hype. I don't care that he's making money. I'm going to quit talking about that. But, like, you go to BYU, you don't go there if Kenny Payne's the head coach. Like, even for the money. Like you talk about the infrastructure there, Kevin Young, the NBA, career as a coach and all that stuff. He's highly well regarded in NBA circles. He takes the BYU job. They have the resources to not just have one guy, but a bunch of them. Like the BYU is here to stay because one is they have the funding. Two is I think they hired a really, really good coach that's running a lot of NBA stuff that is tailor-made to what DeBansa wants to be and what's tailor-made to what all these high school seniors, if that's even where we're going to go in that direction moving forward. Like their system is perfect for people that are trying to advance their careers, especially high-rated people. And there's less distractions at BYU. That's what I'm going to say about that. There's less distractions at BYU.
Well, ask Brandon Davies about that. Anyway, I will say that the one thing I thought was interesting is there's a guy like Keita is not going to get talked about because Rob Wright
Dude's a
is
beast.
outstanding with the bonus. He was huge. Debansa's Debansa. You mentioned Richie already. Richie started making his name for himself a little bit last year in terms of nationally. Everybody had him on a radar coming into this year. But Keita, the physicality, the toughness, he made so many plays down the stretch to win that game, where there was offensive rebounds causing a turnover, a huge dunk, like their energy plays that he made in that game, that he'll need to be that guy in that league, especially in road games, that's going to be critical for them. I will say this. The Marriott Center is one of the hardest places to play in the country. And when you're in the Big 12, you got to win your home games. So they're going to be right there at the end, partially because winning in that building is going to be supremely challenging. And on the road, I think they have a makeup in that guy, Keita. I think he's going to have to bring a lot of the intangibles to all the talent and the great coaching that they have at BYU. We got to go to a break. We're going to hit our last break of the show. When we come back, we'll dive into just way too early. Are we worried about Florida? Next.
As you know by now, we have teamed up with BetMGM again this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we will have special offers for Field of 68 fans, including same-game parlays, best-in-class live betting, and daily odds boost. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app, you sign up using bonus code FIELD, you deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Make this college basketball season one for the history books. Make it legendary. And don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Do you need your fix of college basketball analysis at the end of every night during the season? If you crave instant reactions and informed breakdowns, make sure you tune into the Field of 68 After Dark every night with access to the biggest stars in the sport and a cast of characters that includes the likes of Tyler Hansbrough, Randolph Childress, John Fanta, John Henson, Terrence Oglesby, Jarrell McNeil, and many, many more. The Field of 68 After Dark is where college basketball happens. There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that.
Back here in the Field of 68, presented by BetMGM. We will be on for about 5 to 10 minutes after midnight Eastern time with the afters. So we'll be answering your questions. Pop some in the chat if you're listening now, so we can get you some love afterwards and break down your question in the 5 to 10 minutes after the show wraps up. Alongside T.O., Mike LaTulip, Tyler Hansbrough, I'm Dalen Cuff. We are going to talk about Florida last year. Reigning national champs, go to Vegas, play a big-time game against Arizona, up double digits, 24-12, I think was their greatest lead. They were down double digits in the second half, came back to make it tight, ultimately falling, I believe, by 6. I think it was 93-87 is the final against Arizona. And Akoa Pete, the freshman, was outstanding in that game. But we talked about him already in the show, gave him his flowers. Let's focus on Florida right now. And, of course, because, it's 2025, we got to be worried game one. Is anybody here legitimately concerned about Florida as a team that's going to make a tournament and is a quality team versus a team that's going to win a national championship? Tia, you shook your head aggressively. I'll let you go first. You seem concerned. I think you're muted.
Mute.
LaTulip, you lose your chance, Tio. Mute. Tony Real.
Hold on. I've been sabotaged by Dagan because I talk bad about him in the chat. So that's first and foremost. So I blame Dagan. Secondly, So I was agreeing with you in that it's 2025. We have to overreact. I don't think we have to overreact. I don't think Florida's winning another national championship. I think Florida's going to get to the second weekend. I think they can get to the Elite Eight. I don't even think they're a Final Four team. And I feel like I'm throwing shots at Florida because I don't think they're a Final Four team. That's ridiculous. No, I don't think we worry. I think, the guards are going to take a little bit of time. The thing that does kind of pull me back a little bit is Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland aren't these like big, strong, physical guards like Walter Clayton was, or some of the other guys they had in that backcourt. Elijah Martin was like jacked. He looked like a linebacker. Yeah. They aren't those kind of guys. Those kind of guys win in the NCAA tournament. That's the only reason I would not pick Florida to get to the Final Four. The front court's good, but that was seldom the focal point last year. It was like Walter Clayton. It's like, let's hang around, let's beat you up, and then Walter Clayton's going to throw it from his hip and then like surprise everybody. That's kind of the recipe for them last year, just because he was so good at spots during the NCAA tournament. They have pieces to be great, but when you lose your bell cow, sometimes you're going to take a step back just because he made so many things happen when there was nothing going on. They do have Boogie Fland. They do have Lee. I get that, but they're not the same in like how they approach the game, if that makes sense.
Well, my biggest concern, honestly, is like, and it's not, again, the concern is just defensively. That's where Florida made the biggest step last year. They were an elite defensive team. They offensive rebounded like crazy. We knew they could score. They guys could get you buckets. But defensively, they were a real challenge to break down. They had physicality at the guard spot. They had some decent positional size, and they were able to they make Clayton play on that end, which he did not do 2 seasons ago. Did it last year. They win a national championship. Did it well enough, and you had guys on the bench too that could help. And the bigs were hugely impactful. And LaTulip, we talked about this earlier, though. In that game against Arizona, they couldn't guard. I mean, that middle ball screen was a disaster. And overall, they didn't make you feel them. Arizona kind of got wherever they wanted in the court comfortably. And that was the biggest difference to me. The most stark difference was, yes, Xavier Lee's got to understand some of the physicality at the rim, too, and stop leaving his feet so consistently because he got himself in some trouble at different times. Boogie Fland's got to continue to be efficient. Remember, he was injured so much of last year. He's still a young player. He could be talented, but you need some things here. I love Houck. Condon's great, but I think Houck's outstanding. Problem for me is, will these guys be able to guard on the perimeter? And it didn't show in the first day, but can they make improvements? That's my question mark. LaTulip, where are you?
Yeah, I think, and again, it's relative to projecting a back-to-back title, right? So it's just because we say we have concerns doesn't mean that Florida's not a good team. I shouldn't even have to pre-qualify that. But I think as of now, in early November, there are some concerns. I think let's just start defensively. Koa Pete's going to be a mismatch for a lot of teams. That's not just going to be a Florida thing. But he gave it to each one of those bigs individually at one point last night. But it wasn't all on the bigs. I think Condon has to have better awareness and drop coverage, not letting the roller get behind him. He needs to have more active hands and drop, but their backcourt has to do a better job of squaring the ball up. You can't. I mean, if you're Boogie Fland, you can't go over screens at 35 feet. That's putting your bigs in a really, really tough spot. If you're Xavier Lee and you're going to ice the sideline, at some point you got to square the ball up. Condon can't just stay with the ball handler for 7 dribbles and have Pete just get a little drop off at 6 feet. So that's just like, you can look at Condon kind of running around like he has his head cut off last night, but a lot of that is predicated on the perimeter defense. So whether it's Lee, whether it's Flan, whether it's Klavjar, that has to be a point of emphasis, because if that doesn't get fixed, the defense will suffer as you get into SEC play. And then offensively, it comes down to role allocation. And that's just the tough part. Houck looked like he was willing to take that step and that leap. And who's next? Who's going to be that guy? Like, I don't think that's in Condon's nature to be like, cool, 11 a game last year, I'll give you 16 this year. That's just not. I don't think that's his game. That's not Chinyelu's game. So then you look at Boogie and you look at Xavier Lee, and it's like, okay, who follows Houck? Who's the run stopper? Who gets you out of the rut? We know that was Walter last year. We know it was, and not every player is built like him. So that's not to say someone has to be him, but like what made that Florida backcourt was not just the skill set and the physicality. Those dudes were killers. There's a reason why Steve Kerr is like raving about Will Richard. and wants him in the Warriors rotation because he was willing to accept a role. And that role was like, dude, I may get 6 shots tonight. I may get 12 shots tonight, but I'm going to get in your ass defensively. And I'm going to get after the ball. I'm going to rebound out of my range at 6'4". That's what made Florida Florida. So that's a really tall task for Xavier Lee and for Boogie Flan, but not impossible. I just want to know who's going to come along. Who's going to come along with Thomas Houck? That's just going to be the question all year, because Arizona just midway through that first half was like, cool, we're just going to shrink the floor. We're going to make you play in gaps. We're going to make you shoot over the top of us. And can this Florida team win games that way? I think they have a high floor because of their front court, but the back court is the major question here on both sides of the floor.
Yeah, the lack of shooting is going to be, to your point, that is a bit of a concern, to say the least. And consistency. I mean, Xavier was pretty inefficient yesterday. He had a decent amount of points, but his efficiency and the amount of times they had balls tipped or things that were deflected was pretty crazy in the second half relative to how they started the game and how comfortable they looked at one point. Tyler, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it's a complete 180 from what they were last year. Last year, I felt like they had a guy, Walter Clayton Jr., could disguise a lot of their flaws. When you have a player like that, you can cover up a lot of, deficiencies, whether it's defensively or offensively. But I will say this: I believe in Alex Condon. I think he is a big-time player down low. He's just not a versatile big or a modern big where you can get out and switch and he can guard these guards. Now, Boogie Flan, is he going to come along and be able – no, I don't think so. I still think they're going to have to find their identity, but their identity is going to be completely different than what it was last year. And to make that adjustment and that switch is very difficult for any team. So it's going to take some time, but I do think that Florida's a quality team. And I don't like to be hypercritical of Florida because they played a quality opponent. They could have played like a Central Arkansas and just beat them by 50 points, but they went out there and they chose to play a tough game. And, you got to give them a lot of respect for that.
Tyler, we know your boys played Central Arkansas. You seem upset about this. You've mentioned it like 4 times on the show.
No, hey, Scotty.
You guys have a pretty freaking loaded schedule. They may need a night off.
No, we don't duck anybody.
No, they're playing KU Friday night. We all can't wait for that game. So that's going to be great. Now, this is true. The reason we are talking about Florida in this manner is, yes, because they played the game. And we're going to talk about almost every team we see in the first 3 or 4 weeks with positives and some negatives and some questions. And when you win a national championship, yes, of course, we're going to talk about you in a way that wasn't as glowing when you lose the first game. But we are all thankful, Todd, that you played the game, and Tommy, that you played the game. Otherwise, we'd be talking about Central Arkansas. We're not going to do that right now. Okay.
I'm about over this John Schulman slander with the Central Arkansas stuff. Like John Schulman, hey, how about this? John Schulman took that game. John Schulman decided to go to Chapel Hill. Now, there might have been a little check and a couple of zeros thrown in there to, a little icing on the cake. Hey, but John Schulman took that game too now.
And I'll tell you what, those boys right before tip, they all have that dream. I've been there.
They did. Guys. Didn't last very long, but they had it.
It doesn't last. It does not last long, and it's really. And if it does,
4 Caleb Wilson dunks later in the first 4 minutes.
And the times it does when it gets to 4 minutes to go and then somehow it slips through your fingers, you end up talking about it 25 years later. It's not sad at all. Anyway, I digress. Let's stay focused here. Kelvin Sampson, Houston, he wins his 800th game. They beat Lehigh, and they a pretty decent team out of Patriot League, but they controlled the game. Win 800th win for Kelvin and crew. T.O., I'll start with you. I mean, just you keep it on Sampson, you can go Houston, but I think it's indicative of what he has done in this game. That he's the fourth active Division I head coach and wins now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best to ever do it. I'll just stick with them because I didn't watch him play Lehigh. Full transparency, I didn't watch him play Lehigh. But it's one of the best to ever do it. His teams are tough. They know how to they know how to handle pressure because they deal with the pressure from their coach every single day. There's no let up when you play for Kelvin Sampson. And I have my utmost respect for him, for his staff, and the players that they bring in, because the players that go to Houston, they understand that I'm going there to be coached. So if you are able to take on that challenge, I have a lot of respect for you too. The approach to the game, there's a reason you win a lot of games. And Kelvin Sampson, he's got the secret sauce, and the secret sauce is toughness. So good on him. Congratulations to them. Houston will be very much in the mix for a national championship game.
Mm-hmm. LaTulip?
Yeah, it gives me a lot of comfort in this NIL portal era where I think a lot of programs are trying to shapeshift year to year and figure out their identity on the fly and tailor a new system to this new personnel and this, like, that's just not what Kelvin does. And the fact that he's been able to maintain that through all these eras, and go to a title game last year, to be potentially a title favorite this year, and to not change the way that you operate. And I say that in a positive manner. It's just, T.O., you hit on it. Like, what you're signing up for. It's like going to the military when you go play for Houston. And so I just love to see that. And how long he keeps doing it, I'm not sure. I'm sure at some point he'll pass it off to his son, much like Bruce Pearl did. Hopefully better returns in the first game. But yeah, it's been really cool to see. I was here in Indy when they won in the Elite Eight last year to go to the Final Four, and it was just that fan base. They were really like the smallest fan base out of all the, Kentucky was there, Tennessee was there, but they were loud, and I think they took on that same identity that Houston had. It was really cool seeing them punch that ticket last year. So I got a soft spot in my heart for Kelvin Sampson, that's for sure.
Tyler, anything to add?
Yeah, he's one of my all-time favorite coaches. He's got an identity. He still coaches in the NIL era. He gets after kids, and he's one of the great coaches that stuck around, figured it out. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. I think he should have been a candidate or coach of the year multiple years. And it's good to see what he's doing at Houston. And also, he's stuck to his style. It's not like over-analytical basketball. It's hard to watch. You know that he's going to play bully basketball, beat you up on the boards, and play good defense. So I love to watch it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You guys all said it. If you want to get in the chat here, we are going to have afters starting here in about 3 or 4 minutes. Get your questions in real quick. We'll answer them right now. We're going to go once around real quick. Toast of the night. Give me your around the horn here. Best performance. Guy, we already talked about. Something we didn't talk about. Whatever you got. T.O., I'll start with you. What is your toast of the night?
My toast of the night is for all those teams that we're not going to talk about all that much that took these high major games, that took them. And they took that check, and they got on that plane, and they took their happy asses home along with that ass whooping. So good for them. You got the game. Don't let it affect the rest of your season. Like, rally the troops. Get ready for your conference slate, whether it's the MEAC or the Big South or the ASUN. Make sure that check clears. Get ready to go, and don't get discouraged because you got a lot more stuff to play for the way things are right now. Keep it going. My cheers are to you, the little guy. Keep it up.
I found that the most disrespectful head pat of all time. If I could silence your mic for the rest of the day, I think I would. Go ahead, LaTulip.
I mean, Christian Anderson would be my toast of the night. I mean, the Texas Tech team is absolutely decimated with injuries, and he's just, no worries. I got it. I think they ended up 34, 11, and 7. That's my real toast of the night. My other toast of the night is just to all the athletic trainers out there working double time. Felt like a lot of games I tuned into tonight had 1, 2, 3 players out, and so shout out to them. Just continue to get these guys back to health. We're thinking.
Hey, let's establish something alongside what LaTulip just said. You don't get paid to practice. You get paid to play in the freaking games. Play in the games, guys. Nip this in the butt before this gets going.
Yeah, I wish I had a coach that understood that. Practices really seemed like they were more important than the games. It was strange. Anyway, Tyler, go ahead.
I'm going to go Fletcher Lawyer. Stayed at Purdue. I know they didn't play the 95 Bulls, but he put up tonight 30 points. Respect him, and I think Purdue's going to be one of the powerhouses this year and a contender.
There you go. Toast of the night. We already started. I think it's where we started the show, but I will throw my water bottle and drink up to Pete. When you show up at the big game of the night, top 15, top 13 clash, and that dude just put up a absolutely monster performance. When he also is not one of the guys, the freshman that everybody was talking about before Monday night, he sure as hell will be now because he was all over anybody that follows or cares about college basketball. Knew who he was. Now he's kind of announced himself, announced his presence, going for 13-7 in 5 in a big win over Florida. It is midnight Eastern time. So with that, we bid you adieu here for T.O., Mike, Tyler. I'm Dalen. We will catch you next time on Field of 68 presented by BetMGM, and we will continue with afters now. We going to roll right into it, guys. Is how this thing works.
We're live. It's the afters. Hit the chat.
I'm not getting close to any bear.
My career high on the court is 28.
All right, welcome back into Field of 68 presented by BetMGM. It's time for afters. T.O., Mike, Tyler, Dalen. I'm pulling up the chat. I'm in the text chain. Do we have a question, gentlemen? Trevor.
Yes. So Dalen, I'm just gonna come talk. We're just gonna talk. I'll just do it this way. So Logan wants to know any thoughts on the Michigan Wolverines, fellas. They played Oakland yesterday.
Okay, we'll go to Big Ten. Mike, go ahead first.
Yeah, I think they showed in that game against Oakland exactly what we thought we would see from Michigan, which was dominance, particularly in the front court, but 19 threes. You get Trey McKinney, the freshman, hitting 6 of them. Just a really balanced effort. I think Merez Johnson, as an Illinois guy going over to Michigan, it was good to see him. 20 points in the first half. He was just getting out in the open floor, doing all sorts of things, and it's interesting. I mean, Yaxel Lindenberg doesn't start, has the hand issue, but yet goes 5 for 5 from the field, 12 points. It's a really good team, and I think it's a team that can compete, not only just compete. I think they are arguably between them, Purdue. I know Illinois is in the mix there as well. I mean, that is this Big Ten race, I think, is a little more up for grabs than people thought initially.
Anybody else want to weigh in on
12 assists for Cadeau.
Yep.
12 assists for Cadeau. Imagine what happens when you give him the ball the whole time and you put size and shooting around him. The big lineups, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, LaTulip. Like old school big, Merez Johnson and Mara on the floor at the same time.
Yeah, just smash mouth. I mean, that's I think it's such a great blend that they have. I mean, we talk about Florida a lot as the best front court in America, but the optionality that Michigan has with Yaxel's ability to handle it, which then kind of allows you to play potentially all 3 of them at the same time. I know they've experimented with that in the offseason. But I mean, Mara's all of 7-3. And then Merez just eats glass. I mean, this is a team that we thought coming into the year, one of 2 things was going to happen, or I guess one of 3 things. They're either going to be a really elite defensive team and rebounding team, or they're going to really lean into their pace with Cadeau and with the Yaxel's ability to grab it off the rim and go, or they're going to be a combination of those 2 things, which makes them a very, very elite team. And just based off what we saw yesterday, what we saw in the St. John's exhibition, I'm thinking it may be that they've based off that exhibition and what I saw last night. This looks like a top 5 team in America.
Well, they do have an interesting schedule. I mean, they got Wake Forest coming up next. I mean, Wake. Jury's out on what Wake will be, but as another high major opponent, you are playing at home. You got TCU on the road. Now, TCU did not start their season well. One of the few high majors that fell in their opener. Middle Tennessee, and then they're going to play in the Players era against San Diego State and Auburn for sure. And we'll see who that third opponent is. So we will know more about this team as they move through the month, and they have maybe a little bit sterner of a test than some other teams out there. Let's get back in the chat. What else we got here, guys?
All right, guys. Our friends at Big Blue Nation want to know your thoughts on Kentucky and their win tonight against Nichols.
Okay. Tyler, you want to lead us off here? Just Kentucky big picture, or any thoughts?
Kentucky Owe, right? I didn't watch much of the game, but I think he's their key player, and I think Mark Pope, the run and kind of gun style, I think when they're on, they're a tough team to beat. But Oakland, it's kind of hard to judge or get a good gauge against Oakland on a team, really.
I think that,
what you got?
Tyler, I think them and Louisville kind of limping into that game that coming in next week on the 11th. Kentucky Louisville is going to be the best game of the day that day. I think it's on November 11th. Am I correct in saying that 11/11?
11. Yep.
Louisville played South Carolina State, and they play Jackson State coming up here on Thursday. That's a monster game not only for those two teams, not only for those rivalries, but for the entire leagues going in. There's a lot at stake there, even in the early season. I will say this too: that dunk by Colin Chandler. Oh boy, did you guys see this thing?
I saw it.
Was watching it.
Oh boy. No, there's nothing. You're not going to take much away from Nickel State, guys. What are we doing?
Yeah. LaTulip, anything to add? Big picture, Kentucky. It's a good note, though, with the Louisville game coming up. I will say Louisville, though, real quick. For the leagues, right now, it means more for the ACC. Like, that league has, at least in the last couple of years, carrying some scars. They got to win some of these big games. This would go a long way for them. LaTulip, go ahead.
Yeah, you can't take much from the Nichols game, but I will say offensively it was a struggle for Kentucky in the first half. Like them not having Jalen Lowe, when Mark Pope puts together this team, you put together the team with your pieces in mind. And I think like you have players that you envision as parts of the system, and you have players that you envision as orchestrators in the system. And then right now, given their injuries, like they have a lot of parts of the system, and it's really hard to run good half-court offense, especially with the way Mark Pope schemes that up with just parts of the system. So I think Jalen Lowe coming back is going to open things up. They were better in the second half today offensively. I thought the defense was great. I almost thought in the first half, and you guys know this, like really good defensive teams, to break into like compartmentalizing the defensive and the offensive end to like, okay, we need to, tighten up defensively and be physical and this and that. But how do you also allow yourself to play loose and free offensively? I thought Kentucky struggled with that in the first half. They looked tight offensively as well. And then I thought they just kind of opened it up in the second half. Jasper Johnson, his on-ball reps that he's getting right now when Jalen Lowe is out, it's going to pay dividends when Lowe's back. Because I think he was the one guy, always great in the open floor, but in the half court, he's not as strong in close quarters. But I thought Jasper Johnson like really tilted the floor tonight and facilitated. And when they drew up a play at the end of the half, Mark Pope is drawing it up, staring at Jasper Johnson. And when Nichols comes out in the zone, they basically screen it and he's able to have a lob to Garrison. They wanted him orchestrating that play. And I just thought it's a lot of trust to put into a freshman. Again, I get it's Nicholls State, but yeah, like I just think about like their 5-out offense, like Garrison, that's not his strong suit as a 5-out hub. Marino's coming along. You'll get Quayton's back at some point. When I talked about the athletic trainers, I was talking about Kentucky, and like they have to get healthy for them to get anywhere near their apex. And that starts with Jalen Lowe getting back in the lineup.
It's early season for all of us, guys. And as a new host of the Field of 68, what I've learned through the first 2 hours of this stuff here is if there's any high major playing a low major or mid major team, LaTulip, you're getting the first crack at it. That's where we're going. We're going right to you. You're going to give us, because clearly you clearly locked in and watched that game. You got possessions. You're calling out things. My bad. That's bad hosting. Tyler, my bad. Threw turnover there. T.O., good follow. Didn't watch the game. My bad. I got to make the right pass to look ahead or right to LaTulip for any one of these games. That's where we're starting from now on. Make sure we're clear.
I'll accept.
Okay. Dope. Are we done? Any more guys? We have one more question. It's 12:09.
Two more quick. This one's for you.
Not the answer I was looking for.
Dalen.
Go ahead.
This one's specifically for you, from Rob Doster. How can you stand watching Set Piece FC? And you're going to get your true taste of the aftershare. We don't actually talk about basketball on this show.
See, this is the thing. If you want to talk about, like, if you guys want to talk some soccer, we can get into that, okay? We're happy to get there. 3-0 win today for Arsenal over Slavia Praha. I'm sure you guys were locked into that game around 12:45 Eastern kickoff.
That was a game I was not locked into.
You were not locked into Slavia Praha in the Champions League against Arsenal. We don't care about the Spurs. This is the thing. It's like any rivalry. Maybe you guys will understand this. It's like when you have a rival and you don't technically really care about the other team, who's really the big brother here? Who's on top of this thing? So Doster likes to bring it up all the time. I'm unaffected. Your team's irrelevant. You were 17th last year in the league. Next question.
All right, our last one. Ron wants to know, Houston will make it to the blank. So I'm assuming that's a Sweet 16 Final Four. So your predictions for where Houston will make it.
T.O., you tossed this out earlier. I wasn't sure if you were saying affirm or they could, but let T.O. roll first there.
I may or may not have picked them to win the whole thing. I can't remember. That's
Okay.
where I'm at with Houston. I think they can win the whole friggin' thing in Indianapolis.
Okay. Tyler?
I picked them to win too. I like Calvin Sampson a lot. I've said that before. But their defense, they always come in, and their ability to win ugly games and grind it out, control the boards. I think that's what wins in the tournament. It's a big reason why I picked them to be national champ.
I think I also had them as a national champ. Wow,
That's not good.
Yeah, that's not good at all. Actually, sorry, Cougars. I think this is a really good point because I think it almost flows into Purdue a little bit, just because when you're sitting here on November 4th and it's like, hey, tag this team as a national champion or Final Four or whatever, what you're really saying is what team can win 6 straight games in March. That's really what you're saying. And so the ability to overwhelm teams athletically, to make up for maybe a lack of execution in a game, shots not falling, like that means something. Because we saw all those teams, Duke, Houston, Auburn, Florida, at some point through the NCAA tournament, didn't have their A game, but just overwhelmed you. And that is my question with Purdue, is just 6 straight wins in March. When you don't overwhelm teams athletically, now you got to rely on execution at a really, really high level, and your margin for error gets smaller. Can they do it? Absolutely. But it's going to have to be pretty perfect in March. So that's why I lean on a team like Houston, who I just think has an even higher floor given the way they heat you up and turn you over and kind of muck up the game in a single elimination setting.
Yeah, it's a really good point because you see them in their first games. I mean, it's not going to happen what happened to Purdue, to Houston. They just destroy those small opponents. And even the second round of times, they can overwhelm teams. I will say this for you guys, all three picking Houston.
Evansville had 20 offensive rebounds tonight.
Yeah.
20. Like that's just,
LaTulip.
and then I get Trey Kaufman-Renn didn't play, but Trey Kaufman-Renn or not, that cannot happen. So in Fletcher Lawyer, I know you mentioned it, Tyler, was spectacular tonight. And look, I mentioned the execution piece. Lucky for Purdue, like the good thing for Purdue is they have arguably the best point guard in America and one of the best coaches in America. So that's going to help when I'm mentioning this execution stuff. So it's going to be fascinating to see them. They're going to get everybody's best shot. We all know that. The number 1 team in the country.
I will say this, though. The Houston, you guys all three picked Houston. Okay, Tio, go ahead.
Sorry, I just, before we were going to wrap, I wanted to say I was at the Louisville airport this morning and flew back from Louisville back to Charlotte. And we, a lot of people, there's a giant plane crash at like 5:30. And sometimes like we get so caught up in what we're doing and what's next and all that stuff. Just wanted to throw a shout out to everybody in Louisville because, I mean, like I said, I was there this morning, and whenever I saw the news, I was like, man, what in the world is happening right now? Hope everybody that was involved is okay. It looks like they're starting to at least get everything under control. That stuff right there is a little scary, obviously, for obvious reasons. Hope everybody's okay because I know there were some fumes and everything like that. So make sure everybody stays safe in Louisville. That's a tough deal. So I'm sorry to end it on a bad note like that, but I felt like, man, for a fan base and for a city and that is so welcoming to hoop heads like us, I felt like it was important to say, like, hang in there, guys. I know a lot of people are kind of confused about what happened and all this, but try to stay safe.
I mean, well said. Be grateful for what we got there. 3 did pass away in that crash, and there's other challenges going on around it. So, a great town, very underrated town, huge basketball following, which we'll be talking about throughout the course of the season here on Field of 68, especially on November 11th when they take on their rival from Lexington. For Mike, T.O., Tyler, I'm Dalen. We're out. See you next time.